Good evening. This is the Athens City Shade Tree Commission meeting for July 8th, 2021. We've got a couple of items under Title 33. The first one is just a note that the City Council have changed Title 33 just in terms of the term of appointment of the Tree Commission members. They are now to be 3-year terms, and a board member may serve 2 consecutive 3-year terms.
So the term limits on us now.
I don't know whether, I mean, is that what it was done for, David? Do you?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, 6 years. Two 3-year terms. Yeah. So anyway, we'll worry about that when we come to recruit some new ones, I guess. Roxanne, do you want to explain what we think is happening at West State Street?
Yeah.
Fields?
Yes. So right now we are working with a tentative budget of $3,000 to $5,000. The mayor has asked that the Shade Tree Commission put together a plan that we would share with the city and then would be presented to council and approved along with the budget. So a priority for this year is to use some of the trees that we have as part of our tree bank from Menards. And I went with the city to look at West State Street, and I have put together some presentations. And basically it shows Google Earth of the West State Street ballpark and associated buildings and existing trees. It also shows the planned parking that will be changing on West State Street.
Could you just explain which way? Like this is State Street right here.
Yeah, that's West State Street there. And
And-
the ball fields predominantly are here.
And this is going to the river here?
Yes,
There's
the
the river.
river's over there.
Yes, the river would
Yeah.
be on your right, which would be
And normally the
west.
dog park would be here. And now it's over there.
I don't know. I don't have a dog, so I don't know where the dog park is.
North is approximately like this. It's
Okay.
almost perpendicular to the 2 fields that are
Okay, all right.
across the street south.
So who made the plan for this?
So the parking plans were made by the city, and then I met with Kevin Skurlock from the city, and he presented to me a tentative plan to share with you that we plant trees along the new parking lots, which is on page 4. And so you can see that I show the large existing trees, the medium trees, and also potential places where we can place trees along the new and existing parking. Because the parking essentially runs from east to west, these trees will not really shade the parking. That would be better served if it were across the street. But you'll notice that across the street right now, they are showing expected future construction area. So they've asked us not to plant this year. The priority, once again, is to plant trees along the existing parking lot. It is for shade, but it is also for beautification of the area.
So is the plan for the new construction, the ball fields, is that?
So the plan for the new construction is the parking that you'll see in the black boxes there. Part of it adjoins existing parking, and then there's also a new stretch of totally new parking, which is to the west.
Yeah, I looked at that. That's
And all
a
of
different
that
page.
will be done by this summer, so if we bring in trees from Menards, then we will be able to plant in the fall. And we did receive a bid from Greenleaf, and it is approximately $150 per tree for the planting as well as for the 1-year maintenance of those trees. All of this has yet to be approved. Of course, but if we make the assumption that we have to allocate $150 per tree, then we have approximately, 37 trees that we can plant this year within our budget. The plan that I show on slide 4 allocates 26 trees. There are no power lines or other issues with right-of-ways, so we do have the option to plant large trees or medium trees. What the city has asked, though, is that we do take into account that we don't plant any trees that cause a lot of litter. For example, they have sweet gums already on the property, and those have caused quite a bit of a cleanup issue and also a safety issue. Some people have rolled their ankles, for example, on those sweet gums. The existing trees that are there right now are oak and maple, serviceberry. We also have crab apples out there. So there is quite a mix. A suggestion was made that when we create these lines of trees along the parking, that it might be nice to have some uniformity in the trees. Right now, if you look towards the west, we have a couple of trees right here that are some really lovely oak trees. And so the thought was maybe we could have oaks, native oaks, or some kind of variety. And
That would certainly be
align-
my choice, oaks.
I think that oaks would be lovely. We might have to have a mix of trees just because as you get farther west, you're getting towards the river and it's going to get wetter.
Well, not only that, but it's bad to have monoculture, so.
Exactly. So, and we're also going to have to find out what Menards has available to us. But another thought is that we could intermix large and medium trees so that way maybe we could have some trees that would have something other than just foliage, whether it be
They also have
flower or fall color.
There's swamp white oaks.
Yes.
So there's also white oaks that like moisture.
Now, one of the issues that we do have at West State Street is that Kevin did identify that we do have some trees that are in decline. It's not clear at this point what that decline is. It looks like it could be physical injury, it might be disease. Ann Bonner is going to go out there with him and try and identify the issue, because if it is, disease and tree specific, then we might have to take that into account in our plantings. So I think that what I would recommend is that the mayor is out of town for 12 days now, I believe. And if we could maybe begin to have a discussion about whether or not this is the correct siting of the trees and what type of trees we might want to do. In addition to West State, the mayor and others have expressed interest in planting a few trees up on Carroll Road, where there is currently a vacant lot that's owned by the city, and there's interest in returning that back to woods, and the neighbors on either side are also interested. That would take approximately 6 trees, so the 26 that we show here plus 6, so we have more if we want to allocate as well.
But I don't want to keep repeating this, but I still am unsure about what the construction is all about.
Do you know what the question was? What is the expected future construction?
Yeah.
The construction has to, all I know is that they plan on tearing up some of that area to do some underground work, but I'm not sure what it was.
Well, remember I told you on the way in that they've moved the dog park to the other side of the street.
Yeah.
So, and it's in a beautiful spot right now, and that's what I'm wondering about, because it's such a nice place. I wonder why they're doing that.
Well, what it is it might not be placing a facility, but it is going to require some earth moving. And so at first I was thinking we could plant trees between the existing bleachers. And Kevin said, wait a year, because that ground might be disturbed or they might be bringing in equipment. So I'm not sure that it's a facility that's planned so much as that it's going to be a construction site.
Is there any reason for not having trees on what would be the west end of this 180?
There are paths
That's the
there,
dog park.
David. I think that they're pretty light and they're hard to see, but I believe that is why we can possibly put a tree there. Yes, but I also, when we worked on this, we planted the trees fairly close if we assume that these are going to be large shade trees. So, 30 feet.
Yeah.
So that's pretty typical for us, but if we wanted to, we could always plant them slightly further apart now and then plant more, more areas. So this is just basically a straw man for everybody to critique right now.
Yeah, currently the dog park is surrounded by white pine, and it's really quite nice. Not exactly shady all the time, but
No, pines are nice, but they're not the greatest for shade.
well, depends on where you're sitting at the time.
No, but I mean, generally speaking,
Yeah.
conifers are lovely and have a lot of good aspects to them, but they're not terrific
Make
for
the ground
shade.
real spongy. It's nice.
Well, not, in terms of, if we want shade, they're not the best. And one of the points is that even though these trees and long part of it won't be shading the parking lot, which is too bad, at least for now, but they will be shading the road, and that's part of the mission is to keep it cooler. So by shading the road, it's still doing a lot of good.
Well, oh, absolutely, and I think that when people go to the ballpark, and they're watching the kids play, and they, have their picnics and, their blankets out, it's a really nice place just to relax. So,
Well, one last question about
Yeah.
it. As a citizen, who do you think I might call and say, why are you moving your dog park?
I would imagine Andrew Chicky
Okay.
would probably be.
So, we got a proposal. I think it's fine as it is. We can clearly add more trees if we need to. I don't know that we need to necessarily space them out any further. Unless people think there is, I think it's a shame that they can't manage to put trees in the parking lot itself. We clearly have some trees already in the parking lot, and it looks like there's going to be an extra one there. But,
And
it's a shame we can't manage to put more trees within the parking lot.
Yeah. But but we're hoping in the future. Oh, but wait a minute, when the parking lot is made, they should make plans to put trees in the parking lot. It's much better to do it while it's being constructed.
I would agree, and David and I spoke about this, and we will reach out to the city. When the city makes plans for parking, they are supposed to reach out to Shade Tree and allow us to approve plans, and because this was, I'm guessing, expedited, we were not consulted. We were given the proposed plan, and I think that we need to be more proactive in
I'm not
making
sure
that
how
clear.
you're proactive in an environment in which they don't share the information publicly ahead of time, and this is typical.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this administration is no different than previous ones that are doing this.
Yeah, but, and I think the city, one really, to me, a very strong argument to me, is that the city do put trees in the parking lot because it's very good modeling for the business. One of the big reasons
That's
for
right,
having
that's right.
this Title 33 was to have shaded parking. So if the city is not going to even do it, how can we ask the businesses to do it?
Yeah.
But
I won't argue with anything that you have said.
And I'm just making a point. I'm not arguing with you either. I think
Yeah.
we're all the same mindset. I'm just,
So what should we do to put that forward? How can we
Well,
act on that?
What?
the
on our-
parking lot's
our-
not been built
our-
yet, so it's,
Our recommendation.
it's
that
not
we
in
put
stone yet.
Trees in the parking lot.
Well,
I could reach out to Andrew Chicky, and I can make him aware of our concerns about the current plan and the lack of incorporation of trees within the parking. And if I am told that they plan to move forward, then I think we can present them with this plan. And if they say that there is an opportunity for discussion, then we can work with them to revise the plan.
I'd go with that. I mean,
So I would be happy to
Yeah.
reach out to them.
Yeah, I think requesting a time to discuss the plan before it's set in concrete would be good.
Yeah, now, when you look at the block that's labeled as 180 feet, which is basically the parking that is being added on to existing parking, there's the possibility of creating, additional space as a median there. The issue is that between that parking space and the ballpark, which is to the north, there is a natural drop-off, which they have to contend with, which limits their space for creating the parking. But I think that might be my suggestion, is to create a median there.
Well, the black place that says 180 feet also has beside it that it's the dog park.
That is from Google Earth, so that's what Google Earth put as the label. I did not do that.
That's what it's now.
No, that's what Google Earth thinks is there.
It used to be before they made a new plan.
No, this is on existing parking. The dog park's over here.
The dog park is right here.
Yeah, it's here. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The Google Earth has chosen to put it in the wrong place.
Yeah, not me. But maybe I should have blocked it out because it's confusing.
Yeah.
All right, and David also raised the point that as you travel east, going back towards Schaefer, there may be opportunities to plant additional trees. I think that I might recommend that we go with this plan now, and that we save the few trees that we still have based on the estimate of our budget, in case we have to replace any of those trees that Kevin suspects may be diseased.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I see, okay.
But if it turns out that we don't need to replace those trees, then we can consider alternate places for those trees. So my suggestion is that we bring the existing plan to the city first, to Kevin and Andrew and the mayor, have them look at it, make sure that none of the parking plans have changed and that it's okay. Then we bring both the budget as well as the plan to council for their approval.
So, the existing budget is not the Menards.
No, this is the budget that we would pay a contractor to plant the trees and to maintain them for a year, which we're estimating at $150 per tree.
That's from I saw that.
Yeah, also, it turns out that the city might want to add on to the Menards order, because they do have some trees that they do want to replace, but we, as the tree commission, would not use our budget to plant or maintain those trees. The city would plant and maintain those trees separately. And the reason why is when we put out for bid, we basically said that all the trees would be grouped in an area, which reduced the cost. And if we start, asking them to plant trees in random places, that's going to be more expensive.
So I'd like to make a point about this request for uniformity. This is, I can understand that because a lot of people look at trees for sort of an architectural aspect rather than the biology and their benefits. Because not all trees are created equal, and either in terms of their messiness or other qualities. But I would suggest, I think it's possible to achieve a pleasant effect, which is what I think the uniformity is aiming for, without necessarily planting a whole bunch of trees. Because when you plant, 20 trees or 15 or whatever it is in a row, it's not just that it's the same species, but likely if you're getting a variety, they're actually clones of each other.
Right.
So when one goes down, one is, they're all...
No, and that is a huge issue. So I don't know, David, if you want to have that conversation tonight, but I do think that we do have to have that conversation because David Riggs wants to go to Menards at least 2 months before we want the trees with our tree list. So, do we want to discuss the types of trees tonight? Do we want to consult with others, experts, in order to make these decisions? I know, I
These are the
personally.
experts.
We're dealing with how many trees? 30 at most?
Yeah,
Right. If you've already heard people talk about, I think, 3 different oaks to start with.
right.
So that will be 10 of each. I think that would be diverse enough within this sort of population.
Okay.
So, you know, the others could be sycamore as well. So I agree with Lee about this issue that you don't want it too uniform unless there's a real architectural need to do it. I don't think there is here.
You know, I just don't see people going to the ball field and saying, if only they had planted all white swamp, then it would have been good.
What I
You
was-
know, at this site, I
Yeah.
think that's what they did when they planted all those white pines.
That's true.
I would have a suggestion, though, and I wonder how you all feel about it.
I know why they did. They got approved.
I would
from
like to get a
Philadelphia.
couple of flowering trees in there.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
tulip poplar would be one that you could put in there.
Yeah, yes,
Right,
that's
yeah.
nice.
And does that,
Medium-sized trees,
does that hold
Roxanne?
up well?
I'm sorry?
Medium-sized trees or
I would be okay with tulip poplars. I really like them quite a
Catalpa,
bit.
if you want a really pronounced flowering tree, put a
Catalpa, if it's, yeah, I guess because it's close to the park, then we better not do the magnolia. But,
Why?
because it'll drop the seed heads, the native magnolia.
The native magnolia has these rather large seeds.
Well, I'd like to point out, as much as I like oaks and in favor of them, oaks have a
Acorns.
tendency to produce acorns, and that's why they're often not planted in parking lots, because they are hazards. So if people have turned their ankles, and they consider that a problem with
The sweet
sweet
gum.
gum, of course, most acorns are not as big. In fact, white oaks tend to have quite
Yeah.
small
But
acorns.
there are-
Pin oaks as well. Pin oaks are.
Yeah.
And you know, in an area where there's squirrels and chipmunks,
Yeah,
those tend to disappear very
it's not
quickly.
Well, and also if we're planting larger trees, you're planting them significantly far away from the parking as compared to if you're planting medium-sized trees, you're gonna be closer. We're not planting the trees specifically to shade the parking lot, so I think that we can plant them so
Where-
that
where are
way the
you
tree
putting them?
covering isn't over
Well,
the
it's
lots.
just vaguely.
The red
Hopefully
ones?
it'll be
No, it's the
okay.
yellow, it's the yellow
No,
rectangles.
I just didn't want later than to say, why didn't you tell us
That's
that
right,
oaks had acorns?
We're gonna be
Think about these
introducing
things.
squirrels. We're gonna drive the dogs crazy.
I think,
The ones
I don't
that-
think we have to worry about introducing squirrels. I
Okay.
think they will find them.
Yeah, so I've heard oaks, pin oak and white oak, sycamores, tulip, poplars, and
Swamp
catalpa.
white.
Oh,
Swamp
and
white.
also swamp, yes, because, yeah.
And one of the issues with pin oaks, although they're beautiful, you really have to be keeping after pruning those lower branches because of they form those skirts. So,
You know,
and
there's
that's
a-
why-
There's another-
That's a long-term maintenance issue that we have to, that the city
Yeah.
has to be concerned about. But that can be dealt with.
Okay,
It isn't a big issue in my opinion.
right, well,
Well, I think that we
Roxanne,
have,
there's another large group of red oak, too.
okay.
In fact, most of the city has red oak rather than white oak.
I
Are they
think
native or are they?
I think so.
Okay.
what I would suggest is that, we have our wish list, and we share this, allow the city to give input, they may have opinions on it, and then we share it with Menards, because I'm guessing that not all these trees are going to be available, but we will at least have our wish list.
Is it
Anything
worth
else, Jim?
Seeing what Menards said, do you know, David, has Menards said what type of trees they have? Or
They said if we can get an order into them early enough, they have a bigger choice, a bigger selection
This is just-
available.
this is
yeah,
So
because
earlier
they're
than-
not growing them, they have to order
That's
trees
correct,
anyway, so
yes.
they're
Yeah.
gonna be
Yes.
ordering these. But I think it's smart to have a bigger list,
Oh, yeah.
because that way, you know, if one of them's, they can, well,
We,
obviously.
I think, you know, to deal with Lee's concern, we need to move for at least 3 species
Yeah.
in this collection of 30.
Right, so-
And you've got a list of 6 there, I think, at
Right.
least.
Yes.
if not
And you
more.
know, you can establish a pleasant, look by like having them like one species, sort of spacing them like an oak and then a catalpa and an oak, and something
Yeah,
like that.
and also
so that-
grouping sometimes
Right,
look good.
right. You know,
Agreed.
Lindens are very nice in terms of their flowers and their fragrance.
They do have a few lindens there already, as a matter of fact,
You
yeah.
don't particularly want to park your car underneath the linden.
No, but.
Well, yeah, all right.
Right.
Point
But
taken.
that's a short time during the year.
Yeah, it's actually a similar thing with the catalpas as well. There are times of the year when you probably don't want to be parking underneath.
That's right. So,
Okay.
uh,
So,
parkers beware.
Anyway, yes. All these
I
trees
just
have
made it, I
things.
looked it up.
So
Yes.
we will move forward to share these plans with Andrew. I will first request that they consider a revision to incorporate trees within the parking spaces. If they can't, then we'll move forward.
Then we would like to
Oh, here.
know the parameters that make this very difficult. And thank you, Roxanne, for working on this. This is terrific to get these,
Oh, yeah.
increasing our tree
The
inventory
US,
in the city.
Forest Service has put together a list of trees with climate change in mind. So I was thinking I could pull up what they say for Athens.
Yeah.
That would be
somehow.
brilliant, and then compare it against the list and maybe make some suggestions.
I think
Right.
everything seems to be doing okay. The
I'd
oaks,
also like-
oaks less so than some of the others, but I don't think we want to get rid of the oaks. They're
But-
too important.
But we also have to consider not only climate change, but what trees will do well under city conditions, because they're street
But
trees.
this is a
or-
park, so I'm assuming that it's
That's a good point.
pretty good
That's a good point.
growing area.
I do want to talk to Ann, though, after she makes that inspection and see if we are having any disease issues, because some of the oaks are affected right there, as well as some maples.
Well, she loves swamp white oak, so she'll.
Yes, she does. All right, I got it. Got
Okay.
some marching orders.
Thank you, Roxanne. Is there anything else under Title 33? Okay, let's move on to Title 37. And again, here, I think all we've got to do is discuss the implications of some of the changes that the council have brought in. One which is not actually part of Title 37 comes under Title 9, to do with the cutting of weeds and so on, where they've defined agricultural plants, invasive plants, lawn grass, and noxious weeds.
Noxious.
Yeah. And I don't have any great objection to these definitions. I think it's interesting that invasive species are listed as a plant species that's not native to Ohio, whose introduction causes or is likely to cause economic or environmental harm or harm to human health as determined by scientific studies. So those bad West Virginia plants have got to be kept out of the state. Better build a customs inspection border.
Build a
I think
wall.
they mean
Yeah.
like native in the United States.
No, it's not. It's very clear. It says not native to Ohio.
Well, most things in
Yes.
West Virginia are in Ohio.
Not native to
I think we're
Ohio.
okay with
Yes.
that.
Yeah, that's why you've got to be
Maybe
careful with
that
this
would
thing. And
I
that's
can
why
see that.
that's why I wanted to just point out some of these things.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, well, not native to Ohio. There you go. So don't go bringing those Californian spruces back here.
Right, that's right. And forget about those Canadians.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Lawn grasses means grasses commonly used in regularly cut lawns or play areas, such as but not limited to bluegrass, fescue, and ryegrass blends. And this again will pose some interesting challenges because there are many grasses that I don't think you would necessarily call a lawn grass. But some people might think should be cut down, and that's grass.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a challenge because
Yeah, there
I-
are ornamental fescues, for example.
Yeah. And there's lots of prairie grasses that look great, and you don't want to go cutting those down.
But, David, I do think that that the intention was to make sure that people just didn't grow their grass and go above, what is it, the 8-inch
Yes.
height
Oh, yeah,
requirement
yeah.
and call it a pollinator garden.
Yes.
And so yeah,
Yeah.
or prairie, yeah.
Yeah. Agricultural plants, it appears, are defined as plants that bear fruit, seeds, nuts, and vegetables for personal consumption or use. So anything that you grow in your yard that you can eat, I guess, is now an agricultural plant as far as the city of Athens is concerned.
Bring on the sugar cane.
There you go. Sorghum.
Absolutely.
I don't want that growing in my yard. Yeah, I think that there are also some changes in the way that they write the language around failing to cut or destroy high grass and noxious weeds and so on. I don't think there's anything there to worry us.
One of the
And
issues, oh, go ahead, David.
Within this is an exemption, which we'll get onto in a few minutes, and that is the pollinator-friendly gardens that Title 37 apparently will try and set up.
One of the emails that I shared with everybody, I guess it was about a month ago, was the fact that it basically states that somewhere the city will post lists of plants that meet certain definitions and lists of invasives, non-native, pollinator. And I wasn't sure if that was something that Shade Tree Commission was expected to do or if the city was going to do, but I did give everybody some recommendations of some sites, and then Ann chimed in and added a few others. So I think we need to find out quickly, how is this going to be implemented on the website?
We are the implementers, because the Shade Tree Commission shall maintain and update lists of state invasive plants, noxious plants, native species, and pollinator-friendly species.
Okay, so that means that it's going on our website?
Well, we have to decide
Oh,
what
okay.
these things are.
Well, my suggestion.
Then, once they are decided, they'll go on the website.
Yeah, my suggestion is that there are national agencies which define most of these things. Some of the language is not quite consistent with national definitions, but a lot of it is, and that we refer to those sites. And I had suggested some, and also suggested some additional ones. It would probably be good if the rest of the committee chimed in for what they thought were proper
Well,
resources.
Yeah. Well, at a future meeting, we're going to have to.
There's always Google.
We're going to have
But
to review a list.
Google says that the native plants in Ohio, trees in Ohio are hickory and oak, so we might add a hickory or two to the plans.
Anyway,
I like shagbark.
the point is that the authority sits with us.
Okay.
And I agree with Roxanne, we should try and use somebody else's lists ahead of trying to invent them ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Particularly,
idea.
I know the state maintains a short but quite good list of invasive plants, and that would be my starting point for the invasive plants.
Yeah.
I think they probably have something for all of them.
Actually, what is it? I think it's the USDA has it for each state as well. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That would be another good one.
So I think we can list multiple links,
So
in other
you're,
words. So everybody come up
your
with their favorite
charge
links.
for the next, ahead of the next meeting will be to see what websites or sites, official sites, government sites we can use as references, or public universities, because sometimes a public university will have
Yeah,
a good
extension
site as well.
offices are
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The issue that we might have is when there are some conflicts, but we'll
Yeah.
deal with them.
Well, the one about, that we need to clarify really quickly, whether they mean native to Ohio
It says.
or native to native.
It's actually repeated here.
But I mean, that can still be changed, I think.
No,
Don't you
this
think?
this has been passed. This is now part of the city code. It
It's
could be
done.
revised, I agree.
Yes.
But at the moment, this is what the council have passed.
Well,
and
they
is now
shouldn't
the city.
have, and they need to take it out.
It refers to the invasive plants, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, invasive is different than non-native. So that,
It's-
invasives are aggressive.
Well, that's the, but you see, the definition I read out before, it appears here, again, word for word, I think. A plant species that is not native to Ohio, whose introduction causes or is likely to cause economic or environmental harm or harm to human health as determined by scientific studies.
Right.
So I guess if it doesn't cause harm, it can be a non-native.
You can have a non-native species that doesn't cause harm, yes.
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 Well, thank goodness, because most people's gardens are filled with them.
Yes.
I guess the issue I have is that you can have some natives, though, that are invasives as
Sure.
well.
Right, that's true.
Yes, I mean, that is the other issue as well, that isn't covered here, that there are native plants that you definitely don't want to have in your yard.
For example, poison ivy.
That's one, yeah. Another definition that's cropped up in here is now of the tree bank, a dedicated account, which is used for tree planting and maintenance and/or the acquisition of woodlands, forests, through direct purchase or through the purchase of conservation easements. So our tree bank money is not just for us to spend, it's going to be for the city to spend on things associated with trees.
Correct, but also when we do use tree bank money, we do want to prioritize planting natives, not only for their value, but also because they meet the additional definition within the tree bank, coverage, so that helps us.
Yeah. One of the things that's going to come towards you, David, is this thing about a listing of native shrubs and trees and so on, that's got to be in part of any plans that are submitted to us. I don't think we actually get the plans that we're supposed to get even now, and this is going to be an even bigger burden, I'm afraid.
And you make sure that everything is less than 8 inches.
Yeah, yes, we do that. We actually go out and do that, and we actually will get those into the code office. Those permits will come into the code office, so we can make sure that we request that and forward that to the committee.
Yeah.
I would say one thing, being the newest member on the committee, it seems to me that there's a bigger push now not to encourage companies to create tree banks. That I think we've always wanted more trees, on the property, but because we have such a large tree bank right now with Menards, I think that as best as we can, even if it means, shifting the trees to, smaller distances we've talked about, or trying to get them to revise the plans to incorporate into parking, or maybe for planting, having them plant trees on other city easements. I think that's one thing that we have to make really clear to the city as they begin to, work with these companies to create the plans is, do not create a plan that creates a large tree bank, because we're going to push back on that. And if it means that they have to purchase more property in order to accommodate the trees, so be it.
Well, the other problem we've had is that even though the requirements are clearly stated, that a plan will be made, and then they'll ask for forgiveness, they'll ask for a waiver. But, if we can be firmer about it and say, no, you knew this in the beginning, so let's make a plan that where you can have the required trees in the plan.
Well, hopefully by codifying the price per tree, they will begin to understand that there is a real cost to them when they bank their trees. And that it probably makes sense for them to plant the trees instead.
And we need to properly track what it's costing, because I don't believe the price that they put at the moment is high enough to cover
Well,
the cost.
we actually know that it probably isn't, and I agree. We do need to look at that price, because we know how much we're going to now pay for
Yeah.
maintenance
Yeah.
for just 1 year.
Yeah.
And-
Planting them in parking lots, I think, is part of the answer. And that means that they have to plan to do it before they do the work. And that's been part of the problem, that they come with their plans, and then
And then they say they have no leeway.
they have no
Because
place to put the
there's-
trees.
Well, what can we do? It's impossible. And yet before, and I noticed that when I went to my dermatologist, out that even, and I can't remember when that was built, but it wasn't that long ago, back down on East State Street. There are trees in their parking lot.
Yes.
You know, they
Yeah,
they just put them in.
They actually wanted to have trees in their
Yes.
parking lot. And they were also delighted with the idea that I proposed to them, that they keep that wooded area at the back, because apparently that's what the patients look out onto.
So explain something to me. A company wants to build something. Who is their primary first contact at the city? So I guess we're riding herd on you a little bit, just to say, we really have these expectations, and if they don't believe you, you can send them to us, we'll beat them up first.
Yeah, actually, the way that works is that they come to us first, and we tell them
Yeah.
I always tell them what your requirements are.
Yeah,
Then they go to Planning Commission,
Yeah.
and Planning Commission, along with the Shade Tree Commission, will make a recommendation, and then Planning Commission will act on it. It's whatever Planning Commission approves.
okay, so that
will
means
go
that we
forward.
probably need to have a meeting with Planning Commission to make sure that, everybody's on board with this,
Well, I
because
think it
we don't
gets-
want to be overridden.
I think if you stress the need for them to plan,
Yeah.
because that's what,
I always do that. And I
Yeah.
think if you've seen the last few
Much
developments
better.
that have come in.
Quality's good.
Yeah, yeah. And we're
You've
going
done
to
a
see a
great
couple
job.
more coming up, really, really cool, nice developments that are.
Yeah, I think
But
that's helped a
nice.
lot.
There seems to be a consistency, at least the last few I've seen, where there were trees in the parking lot, but they were at the end of rows in such a way they weren't going to shade many cars, and there was potential for those trees to be damaged by trucks moving around. And that's not really the idea. The idea is to have them within
To internalize them, yeah.
to parking lot.
And I
and
meant
the
to bring,
islands,
there's
yeah.
a picture in one of the Arbor Day brochures of the parking lot at their place, the place called the Leaves or something like that. And they have, when you look down on it, it looks like a woods. 'Cause
Ah.
the trees are a canopy over almost all of the parking.
Well, I think also if businesses can be convinced of the research that shows people want to go to places that have trees. This is attractive to them and businesses do better. But I think it's hard for people to look at, take the long view, and all you have to do is go to Kroger's, and those shaded parking lots are never empty for very long.
Yeah, well, I think that in the past, there haven't really been repercussions for them creating a tree bank, because quite honestly, the city didn't charge up front, and very often, those
got away with
businesses
that,
were
doing
never
it.
charged for the
Right.
tree bank.
Right.
But now we're being, we're telling them, when you're partway through construction, you're paying for it, right? And so I think that we're assigning a real cost. Now, as David brought up, that cost might not have been priced right, and that's something that we can look at, but at least now, we are giving a price. So that's sort of the stick, but I think that the carrot as well is that we are willing to work with any of the businesses and to help just consult on their plans and to give them the literature, to, tell them about what type of trees may or may not work in the particular spaces they're considering. We're not just an enforcement or an advocacy committee. We are also a group of consultants with
Yeah.
some expertise that they can leverage.
We are a definite resource,
Yeah.
because we've acquired quite a bit of information over the years about trees
Yeah.
and.
But I think that that's really important, that we continue to demonstrate our willingness to work with, but that we do have certain, red lines, where we're
Right,
just like,
right.
we're not gonna do certain
Well,
things.
I think we have been, and David has really, even almost bending over backwards to try to accommodate businesses and not to throw, not to throw rocks in their way, but to try to achieve our goals while the businesses thrive.
But it would be helpful if they followed the plan.
Yes.
If they planned and followed the
Yes.
plan.
Right.
A plan would be nice.
The on installation and maintenance, there are some changes there. All landscape areas shall retain existing native trees, shrubs, ground cover and grasses to the greatest extent possible. So clearly that's going to have to be a driving force when we look at people's plans and talk to them about the possibilities for planting on their site, and particularly when they start pushing back on the, well, can we use the tree bank?
Did you
well,
bring any copies of those?
I sent them out with the minutes.
They're
I-
attachments.
Yeah, I don't print out,
Okay.
We're the
Well,
tree commission, we don't print
I-
things.
It was hard to read.
Yeah.
It was hard to read.
Yeah.
On the, mine,
Yeah.
I couldn't get it to go in the middle, and then when I would, it would
Okay.
snap to the next
Yeah.
page.
Now, I don't have a printing budget.
Yeah.
The,
I was hoping.
yeah.
I saw a little file
Um,
there.
All plantings must be completed within 12 months of occupancy. That is a significant change, and one that I asked them to include, because I felt the original language about one planting season and then must be installed during the next planting season if they don't make it in the first one wasn't working. And just we're having a calendar to live to is the best way, because within 12 months they must have had one good planting season
Yeah,
that they could use. There are some interesting changes further down in this section on installation and maintenance. City permitted landscaping must have at least 60% native vegetation required for tree species, 50% native vegetation required for shrubs and ground covers. So obviously we're going to have to be watching out what they're putting in their ground covers and so on. Planting material must be on the approved plant list developed by the Shade Tree Commission. No plant material found on Ohio's list of invasive or noxious plants may be used. Okay. There's an interesting insertion here, because I never thought of Title 37 as applying to city lands, but the council have done it. Plantings on city land or city rights-of-way must be 75% native species, with the exception of annual flowers and plants, which must be 75% pollinator-friendly species. No plant material found on Ohio's list of invasive or noxious weeds may be used.
Are you ready for this?
So what this means is that now, you know, I think we were headed in the right direction anyway, but their plantings that they're proposing to put at the ballpark have got to comply with this requirement. So if they're thinking of planting any shrubs, they've got to come to us to get them approved.
Oh goody, so now we're tree and shrubs?
Apparently, that's...
We're very
Yes.
witty.
Yeah, yes.
Witty.
Yeah. And they need to be pollinator, 75% of those plants have got to be pollinator friendly.
75%. Well,
That
bring
swimming
on the
pool would
linden.
never have passed this list, I can tell you.
Well, oaks are good, oaks are good.
Not for pollinators, but for.
Yes, they are, because they're host trees.
but-
But you don't only have to have it be
Oh, I
as
realize,
feeders.
I
so,
realize, well,
yeah.
they're good sites, but they're not, they're, okay,
They're not nectar sources, but
Right.
but they are host trees.
yes.
So
Absolutely.
I would count them.
Okay,
We're gonna count them, right?
And then in this, we get this reference to us maintaining lists of state invasive plants, noxious plants, native species, and pollinator-friendly species. So yeah, we're the go-to people when it comes to pollinator-friendly species.
definitely pollinator friendly,
That's right.
when you provide shelter.
The tree bank piece comes in here. If the site cannot facilitate all shade tree requirements, an off-site mitigation fee established by separate ordinance will be assessed. Said fee, in accordance with section 370202 tree bank, that's coming later, will be deposited into the Athens City Tree Bank account line. So they're establishing through legislation a separate account
Oh,
in the
great.
city to
Yes.
put this money into.
Oh,
Yes.
that's wonderful, that's what
Yeah.
we've been wanting.
Yep,
Will that work better?
Yes.
we can track it.
Well, we can track it, and it also means, I think, that they can roll it forward from one year to the next as well, I believe.
So we don't have to plan it all in one
Yeah.
time.
Because that's
Yeah.
been a problem,
Well, it potentially is a problem, yeah.
I mean, in the
Yeah,
past.
yeah. There's a change under the parking under the, not the parking requirements, the tree requirements in parking spaces. The requirements can be reduced by 1 space, but no more than 2 spaces to meet requirements. Native species, existing native healthy species may fulfill these minimum requirements. I still haven't really figured out exactly how that's going to work, but it's some wording that was inserted in the in the calculations piece we have to do for how you deal with.
I'm not sure what that means. What are they?
So if you keep a tree, it counts as a tree?
Yeah, I think that's what it means.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about the 75, or the, not 1 space and not 2 spaces? What is that all about? Is that, if you plant a tree, you can use only 1 space?
I don't know, because we've never had to deal with the parking rules. David, do you know what the...
Yeah, I think there's 2 pieces there. One is, we have minimum parking space requirements. And I think what part of that is saying is that we can reduce that by up to 2 parking spaces. So if you were required to have at least 50 spaces, and you planted 2 of those trees in the parking lot, they would remove 2 of those requirements, so you'd only be required 48 spaces.
So in other words, that's encouraging them to
Encouraging
put
them to
the
plant
trees
them
in the
yes.
parking. Oh,
Yes.
love it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you. I couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah, and to meet the required trees, the trees may be placed in the city right of way with the consent of the Office of Code Enforcement. I think that's a change, because I think it was
It used to be the shade tree.
the
yeah.
Shade Tree Commission that did that, although it doesn't appear to be deleted there at all. So anyway, then there's a whole new section, 3702, which deals with, I should read the first part. It says, this section is intended to protect, conserve and restore the ecological health and safety of our environment by A, protecting essential habitats and watersheds and ensuring biodiversity and ecosystem services are protected. Building resilience to climate change by protecting essential green infrastructure and planning for protection and restoration of essential green infrastructure. Boy, they're putting a load on our shoulders, aren't they?
And what's number 1?
The protection of...
No, B, I mean, what's B?
B is the building resilience for climate change.
Oh, I thought it said reducing the heating effects of paved surfaces.
Not this piece here. That was the bit I
So
was reading.
I guess it can tell us our guiding principles, but how does that actually get put into practice? Are we expected to go and tour these facilities to determine green spaces? Will code bring us in if there's a suspected green space that needs to be sustained?
No, I think what they're trying to get us to do here is to argue for certain things when developers come to us, or the city comes to us. I think now, because the city is now put itself into this part of the ordinance, and that we can use these arguments to say, no, you have to plant these things because the intent of this legislation is for this, this, and this.
Okay.
And so we've now got some additional backing in the arguments. They can still say, no, we don't agree, because we're the city. But at least we can put them forward. There's some definitions. Celebration trees apparently are defined through this act. The green infrastructure, the range of measures that use plant or soil systems, permeable pavement or other permeable surface and substrates, stormwater harvest and reuse or landscaping to store, infiltrate and evapotranspirate. Oh, okay. Stormwater and reduce flows to a surface. Native plants, those species and cultivars that have developed and exist in this region before European settlement. So you can't claim just because it's been here for 200 years it's native. No, it's got to predate the European settlers. Pollinator is an animal that moves pollen from the male anther of a flower to the female stigma of a flower, thereby enabling the formation of seeds. Tree bank, a dedicated account for, yes, okay, we understand that one. Tree bank, if the specific application of the landscape requirements will seriously limit functions of the site, the Shade Tree Commission shall have authority to permit consolidation of the landscape requirements into the city tree bank. Landscape off-site mitigation fees will be dedicated to this fund. And our practice, and I don't think we need to change it, has been that when a developer wants to bank trees, there has to be a supermajority of commissioners present at the meeting to approve that action separately from approval of the plans. And so there is a much higher threshold for allowing the tree banking than just for allowing the plans themselves. Tree bank monies can be used for planting native species in public parks and rights of way, other plantings and maintenance of trees in the city, purchase of forested conservation land or conservation easements. The city service safety director or his or her designee shall have final determination of the use of the tree bank monies. Program to plant celebratory trees on city property. The city will maintain a list of public planting sites and tree species to choose for the program, and the city will have the final say in species type and location. Looks like
Doesn't say who's going to do it.
well, yeah, I'm rather glad about that because I don't want to have to deal with that one. Somebody in the city administration can deal with that one. Yeah, it's very time consuming, that.
Yes, it is.
There'll probably be somebody in the office to be charged with, if anybody comes in and wants to buy a tree.
Yeah. Application fee will be established by separate ordinance and included in Title I of this code. Okay. City will guarantee trees for the first 3 years. So that's a celebration tree program. Moving on to the native and pollinator friendly front yard program. Owner-occupied homes and businesses are encouraged to plant and maintain native pollinator friendly front yards. This program will be used to document pollinator friendly locations. The program will also develop educational material for the public. Designation as a pollinator friendly front yard must include 1. An agreement to reduce all pesticide and herbicide use in the yard. Have at least
Did
one.
they give you little signs yet?
This is, listen to this one. This is the one that makes me
2.
laugh.
Have at least one pollinator-friendly species in bloom
During each season.
from spring through fall.
Whoever came up with that should be shot.
That's-
Sorry,
that is
because
gonna
that's
be
clover. So they can just have clover in their yard and bingo, they're done because it blooms for all seasons and it's pollinator friendly.
Done that one, good.
And it's native.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And
Whoever did that one, I was just like, oh my
And
gosh.
clover's definitely native?
Yeah,
Some of them are.
some of them are. The white clover, I believe is.
3. Have
We
at,
should-
That's the one that blooms for a long time.
3. Have at least one native pollinator-friendly species in the yard. This can include trees or shrubs.
Yeah, so one. So it doesn't have to be a clover, it can be just one tree, a red bud, or whatever. Actually, I guess that doesn't bloom all seasons, so.
No.
Maybe you have to have
What
3
tree
different
does,
trees.
what tree does.
Yeah.
I mean, almost what shrub does.
I'm not saying it has to be the same plant.
Here's the funniest one, I thought.
Flowering that whole time.
The next one, I think.
Yeah,
is
no.
I mean, they can cycle through it.
Have at least one of these.
Then maybe you have to have 3 plants.
Yeah.
Unless you have the one clover that just blooms all the time.
Number 4. Have one of the following in the yard. Water source, nesting habitat, or protection.
Yeah, what's protection? A bundle of sticks? Sorry. We're on TV, I shouldn't be this sarcastic.
That's a funny one.
I apologize to the audience.
I wonder what the thought for the protection is. What,
I like bug hotels. I think that it's a very important concept to have not only food and water, but protection for your,
are you talking about
But
shelter?
what's recommended?
Shelter.
Well, you can
Yeah,
have
so in
these-
other words,
these-
shelter.
What's
these
recommended
little-
is what you
Yeah.
said, and that's to leave debris around so they can get underneath it.
Yeah,
These-
but you can just imagine the interpretation is going to be difficult, not for us, for you. We apologize.
He's
you
going to
know-
come to us for the interpretation, I can tell
Yeah.
you. These solitary bees, for instance, if you've got the,
Yeah.
if you put in the habitat for
The
those.
little, well,
Yeah.
those bee hotels, I was shocked to find out you have to clean those. Those require maintenance. You can't just put them up and
Yeah, they
that's
do.
it.
Yeah,
Once a year, if they don't,
the
if they don't
tubes.
clean them out, you've got to clean them out, yes.
Yeah, so the tubes.
Do
But
bees dirty beds?
they get mites
Yeah.
and other issues that you worry about. Yeah, so we get bed bugs in our hotels, they get mites. So, but, I mean, a lot of what you would consider protective shelter for bugs would just be leaving perennials once they die back and, you know, have them stand there. But you can imagine that some of the neighbors, you know.
If they're more than 8 inches. they
Yeah,
Yeah,
they say,
the-
why aren't you tidying up your garden?
I think that we're in for a lot of education. And I think that, you know, rather than just the stick, I think that there has to be the carrot. And I think a lot of people really do have best intentions, but they just have to understand that, like any other garden, it does require maintenance.
Yeah, but one of the things about the shelter is by leaving leaves in your garden beds, it's actually much better for many beneficial insects.
Absolutely, yeah.
Last but not least, after taking the pollinator pledge and paying $25 application fee, a program property can then display their pollinator-friendly yard sign.
Which
be
you've had
provided
printed
by the
already,
owner.
right?
We'll have to work on that, yeah.
Is that going to be provided by the city, or is that the
Yeah.
owners will
No,
supply?
I'm assuming the city will supply those.
I think that's part of what your
Very good.
$25 application fee
Yes.
goes towards. So, those are the changes. Clearly, we've now got quite a big to-do list in terms of assembling these lists of
Can I just go back to one thing,
sources.
David?
Yes, certainly.
I would really like, David, if you would consider going back to that line where it says, you know, one species in bloom during the three, basically, the idea that just having one plant in a garden qualifies you as a pollinator garden. We laughed about it, but I think that
Well,
language.
it isn't one plant, it's one plant each
You mean, are you
season.
talking about one
Well, it says
species?
one plant in flower through all seasons.
I
And
do know.
theoretically, that could be one plant,
Which plant, what's gonna do that all year
Clover.
long?
clover.
Oh, clover, well,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't think that that was your intention, and if you look at other qualifications for pollinator gardens, that is not how they would have done it. It actually is a percentage, or it's a much larger number of species. So I think that we're gonna get into some trouble with that.
Or potential.
I wonder if they've used the
Yeah.
one that's already, there's
Hopefully
already one that's
people,
passing out signs.
hopefully people who want a pollinator garden are going to be doing some research and they're going to be doing it. But, you know, it might be better to have like 2 or 3 species, but have a large number of each
Yeah.
Can I
species.
give you an
Yeah.
example of what may happen in this troubled world of,
Okay.
of landlords that we've got in this community, where they will look at this and say, if I just seed this front yard with clover, I don't have to do anything at all. And I'm
Yeah.
pollinator friendly.
I was just trying to protect code office from something that I see as just an inherent issue in the way that it was written. Certainly not the intentions,
Right.
but in the actual language that I think we can help improve. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think, isn't the, some of this enforcement complaint-driven? So like a neighbor could say, hey, number 47 Oak Street, that is not a pollinator garden, you know, they're letting it grow, but, and so then somebody can come out and look at it and say,
That's what we've done in the past. This was trying to do something a little bit different for in order to, you have to get the pollinator designation first. And then if there's a complaint, we would tell the complainant that that yard that's a pollinator yard.
Yeah.
And that we'll go out and inspect, and there are some criteria that we have to follow, or that pollinator yard has to follow, but that would be exempt from our Title IX grass and noxious weeds.
So when someone makes an application, do you think they're going to have to put in a plan for like?
That's what I'd expect to
Okay,
see that,
good.
and then we would submit that to you guys for review. Yeah.
Yes, well.
One more line item on my agenda, I guess. Pollinator
We'll
garden.
have to have some specialists.
Well,
Yes.
I was speaking highly of you earlier tonight about the fact we've got 4 master gardeners
That's true.
on this thing. We should be able to sort this out.
Right, that's true.
People at least come up with 5 different opinions as to what.
Well, and also, we will be required on our website to have lists of pollinator plants. And so we'll have checklists. I mean, it won't be all-inclusive. They'll be able to come up with things that aren't on our list, but it will help the community make their selections. And I would say that the local nurseries are actually doing a fabulous job of advertising what plants that they have are good for pollinators. They've been really good about that recently.
I've been noticing that some of them are actually having sections
Yes,
of their,
yeah.
So when are
Many
you
of them
planning to
are
be
doing
ready to
that.
make inspections?
Well, the ordinance has been approved, and we will be accepting applications for this anytime. We have not gotten any yet, but we're
haven't gotten
ready
Well,
to
I
accept.
tried to apply, but I couldn't find the application.
that
Yeah.
makes
Is,
it more difficult.
yeah, so is
It's
there an
not online
application?
yet. It's not online
Okay,
yet.
yeah, because I think I might have emailed you even. I was like, I'll be your test, person.
That's what I was just going to say. You
Yeah,
can come to my
I
house
would
for
be
a
happy
test.
Found out
to
white
do that.
clover is not native, so we're in the clear.
How about red?
I don't think that is.
Okay. Oh, what's the yellow one?
Well, that's invasive. That
Oh,
one.
yeah. Okay, so clover would not be
It's
considered?
naturalized, but it's not native to North America.
Okay,
That's what I was wondering.
okay, the other question I have going back is, in some points, it says that it emphasizes native pollinators, but then later in the language, it drops native. It just says it has to be a pollinator-friendly plant.
And they talk about
And I
annuals.
don't think that clause says native, does
Well, there
it?
aren't any
No,
natives that are
no, it just says
annuals.
one pollinator-friendly species. It doesn't
So
say
it doesn't
native.
have to be native, so it can be the
It's-
clover.
Yeah, that would fulfill the in bloom during each season, but then you'd have to have something else. that
Sorry,
was
Jim.
that was
I
native.
appreciate it, but
There
I
was-
still think we
there
got a
would then have to
problem.
be at least one native other there.
Oh, in addition to the.
Yeah.
Violet. So now we need 2 plants, okay. Oh, well.
Yeah.
All right.
And a water source or nesting habitat or protection. Oh, I don't-
Sticks.
Yeah, I don't,
And
I don't-
leaves.
I don't clean up my leaves, there you go.
Or beer cans.
This was passed on May 10th, so it would be active by
It's
now.
effective now,
There's a
yes.
thought.
June 10th would have been when it became active. So we have our own to-do list.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else in the Title 37. You don't have anything?
We've got a couple of interesting projects coming up, but they haven't submitted yet.
Okay.
They're in the preliminary stages, but I expect them to go this year yet.
Okay. Are you likely to have anything for a possible August meeting? Because that's one we sometimes cancel.
I couldn't be 100% sure about that, yeah. It's possible.
Yeah, David, we might need that August meeting just because that might be a meeting that we're going to need for the planting.
Oh.
It might be the last one before we have the final orders and everything. But we might be able to do it another way as well.
Okay, maintenance of the tree canopy plans. I'm still putting together a big list of the sites that we had. I've not received any other lists of sites yet for that. I guess we should note that Roxanne did get the quotation from Greenleaf, which seems to be competitive price for doing the maintenance of those trees, so
Yeah.
that's...
And we did have two bids, and they were both close, and regretfully, one of them had to pull, so.
Yeah. Anything else for discussion this evening before we get to the minutes?
Just to clarify, the bid was for the planting and the maintenance, right? Not for the tree itself?
correct,
Correct.
yeah.
It's for one-year maintenance, and you'll notice that in the quotes that I sent to you all, there were two different prices. One, which is where they are responsible for the tree health, and one where they were not. And I think that their preference is, because we are bringing in trees from Menards rather than them sourcing the trees, their strong preference is for us to be responsible for replacement of the trees. And it's my contention that because if we lose a tree, we can just go to Menards and get more trees because we have such a large tree bank, that we probably should save our money and go with the slightly lower cost.
That makes sense.
As long as that they will include the watering, that's the big thing. is
The watering is actually, it's an additional
It's an additional cost.
cost.
Right.
But if we take that and then divide it by the number of trees, we'll be within our budget.
Right,
It'll
right.
be okay.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this price and you think $150 and the city's taking $225 in. That means the value of that tree, or the price of that tree, was $75. I don't know
Is
which
that
of us
right?
can buy a decent shade tree anywhere for $75.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
so,
So-
yeah.
Anyway, that was good that we've got that. Is there anything else that we want to discuss this evening before we get to the minutes of the last meeting? If not, we have the minutes of the last meeting, which you have a copy in front of you here.
I read it.
Okay, good.
Oh, David?
Yes.
I did have one thing.
Yep.
A question. At our last meeting, we had discussed potentially using part of the tree bank as, for a tree sale. And you had talked to us that council might have some input. And then we had suggested that the Shade Tree Commission have a meeting with the city's legal.
Law director.
Yeah. Is that possible to set up?
Yeah, I could set that up for you. Is there a representative or somebody who would like to meet with?
Well, I should be one of the people meeting
Okay.
with her, and maybe Roxanne,
Okay.
one of the other commissioners.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd be available, but I will also defer if somebody else wants to do the meeting.
yeah. And it won't be in the next week because I'm gonna be out of town.
Okay, I will follow up.
Yeah, so yes, if you can, is that still Lisa Eliason?
It is,
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So, the minutes of the last meeting, any questions, comments about these before?
I have one, and it's minor. 3C, it says we have and it should say tentative budget.
Okay.
I was wondering about that.
I can change that.
Thank you.
And for planting rather than planning.
No, it says for planting.
It says for planting.
Yeah.
Mine says planning.
Oh,
There's a T there. Oh, there, yes, thank you. Yeah, I spotted that one, yeah. Yep. In reference to the quote, it says planning and it should say planting. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone like to propose we accept the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes,
Thank you, Nancy, and I'll take that as a second, Roxanne.
sounds good.
Is there any further discussion on the minutes? Is there any objection to approving the minutes of the last meeting? Hearing none, we have minutes of our last meeting. I will forward those to the city. Our next meeting, our next scheduled meeting would be August the 12th. There's a possibility I won't be here for that meeting. And as I mentioned earlier, that's a month in which we sometimes don't have one, but as Roxanne said, we may need to have one to approve these plans. And you know, one thing we could do, if you think it's worth it, we could just have an off-schedule meeting, as long as we give enough notice. And enough notice is 24 hours, basically.
I think a lot of it's gonna have to do with how the city and council react to the plans.
Yeah, yeah. But if it looks like it will be useful to have a meeting before, then
Okay.
we
Okay,
could always try that.
great.
We
Sounds good.
basically need 3 commissioners for a quorum for a meeting.
David, would it be possible to ask Menards what is their drop dead date for our orders for the trees? I think that could be useful. And also, what do you all think is the optimal time for planting
November.
trees? Yeah.
Definitely the fall.
Late
So-
November,
so no-
December time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if they need a few months, I'm hoping that they're gonna say end August.
That would be my absolute limit, because we've had problems in the past trying to order trees
Yeah.
after that date.
Okay.
And so I would definitely not, I mean,
But that-
you should try and encourage whoever's going to approve this in the city to approve it by the 1st of August.
Okay,
all right.
I will do that. The mayor is out of town for 12 days, and so I'm hoping that next week we'll be able to work with some of the city maintenance, Parks and Rec people, just to see if they have any preferences before we then bring it to the mayor and then have that final, and then get it into whatever council meeting that would be. I don't know what council meetings there
I'm still
are.
not clear on why council has to make a decision on this.
It's for the budget. So it's
Oh, okay.
it's being presented to them. I don't know where the money's coming from, but they must
Haven't
oversee.
they approved a budget for this coming year?
Well, this would be the,
Because they work on the fiscal year that starts in
yes,
July,
yes,
don't they?
it'd be a reappropriation, because that money wasn't in the budget at the beginning of the year.
So they've already they've already dedicated the budget,
Yeah.
and that's why they need to.
They have to
okay, I get it.
reappropriate,
Do
yeah.
you know what meeting dates they have?
I don't.
I'll talk to Chris Nicely. She was the one who informed me of this process, so
Okay.
I'll work with her.
Okay, so I think with all that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, cool.